there's absolutely no room for cowards in leadership. And the uncomfortable conversation, the one that you least want to have at that moment, that's the one that you have to have immediately. Like, most people will not address the elephant in the room, right? They'll ignore it. They'll let it, they'll pretend it's not there. They'll put their head down. So, you have the person who shows up, maybe late, or maybe they're just a pain in the ass, and you'll let them hover around in the organization for too long. And ultimately, that person is diminishing the overall output and the success of the organization. And when you don't address head on the most courageous and important conversations that you need to have, what happens is the business starts to underperform. And so from a leadership standpoint, like, when you get to that feeling in your gut, in your stomach, that says, like, I don't want to talk to that person, you got to pick up the phone. Like, you have to have the meeting. You've got to sit across from the person. And a lot of times, like, what's happening is what you're seeing, what's being, like, externally, like, presented. What's being externally presented is actually a symptom. It's not the cause, right? So somebody's behavior, or the way that somebody is acting at that moment, if they're being challenging, or they're, and it's out of character, a lot of times what that is, that's a presentation of some bigger issue. And you have to attack that. You have to go and root out what the real cause is. And that often leads to a courageous conversation about the fact that people have fallen out of love with what you're asking them to do. Jack Welch says that, like, he'd rather be a jerk than a coward, right? And I think that cowardice is all around us. I mean, we don't want to have the courageous conversation. We want to avoid it at all costs. And instead, like, as a leader, what you need to do is you need to embrace those. And your willingness to embrace that courageous conversation actually will define the level of leadership, the height of your leadership capacity, and ultimately the number of people that you can touch. And all too often we just avoid it at all costs. And probably the most courageous conversation you can ever have with somebody is when they fall out of love with what they're doing. And the conversation usually is something like this: look, man, I love you. And I hope you love me, and I hope you love this, but if you don't change what you're doing, if you don't change the behaviors, ultimately what's gonna end up happening is you're gonna start hating me, and you're gonna hate me because you're gonna need somebody to blame for your failure. You're not gonna want to take your personal responsibility. You're gonna blame me, and therefore, and the company and the marketplace, you're gonna have all of these reasons, all of these crutches that you're gonna give your ego in order to protect yourself from responsibility and ownership. And so before that happens, before you hate me and before I hate you, let's do this. Let's go, have a beer and celebrate your retirement. Let's part ways. And friendships, relationships, partnerships, if they could all end amicably by identifying the problem early, the world would be a much better place, right? You'd be much more successful. You'd have much less angst. But whatever you do, don't bury your head in the sand. When you do that, your business is on a slow death. It's like being at a blackjack table and losing, one hand after another, and watching your stack go lower and lower. Your business is going to slowly deflate like an empty balloon. That's it.